for our continuation of our winter speaker series on Zoom. My name is Maria Muehlbach. I am the Senior Director for Alumni Outreach here at the Nebraska Alumni Association. Very happy to be able to work on our program, the Nebraska Women's Leadership Network. Again, we are hosting this continuation of our winter series with a focus on global perspectives. And we are thrilled to have Dr. Gwyneth Talley joining us today. She is joining us from Cairo, so it is nighttime or nearly nighttime for her there. So thank you so much. We will just go ahead and jump right in. So kind of a quick overview of our agenda here. I will provide a quick introduction of Gwyneth, and then she will go ahead and take it away with her presentation. But at any time, any of you in the audience does have a question, feel free to add that to the chat. I will be monitoring the chat as we go along. But we're really interested in just having an open dialogue and conversation. So if any questions come up while Gwyneth is speaking on a specific topic, please feel free to ask those right in real time. And then we will have time at the end of her presentation for open Q&A as well. So any burning questions you weren't able to answer throughout her presentation, you will definitely have time towards the end. So again, thank you all so much for joining us here today. And I am thrilled to get to introduce you all to Dr. Gwyneth Talley, who is an alumna. She graduated in 2013 from the College of Arts and Sciences, and she has an incredible educational journey. She had 5 majors and 2 minors, all at UNL all through the College of Arts and Sciences. Dr. Talley is a visual and cultural anthropologist who focuses on the intersections of gender, kinship, sport, leisure, and human-animal relationships in the Middle East and North Africa. She also received her Ph.D. In anthropology from the University of California in Los Angeles. She's a Fulbright alumna, current adjunct faculty member in the School of Global Integrated Studies through the College of Arts and Sciences at UNL, a National Geographic explorer, a National Geographic expert for Morocco. Gwyneth is also currently working on her first book project titled Gunpowder Women Playing in Morocco's Traditional Horse Sport. It is based on 3 years of ethnographic fieldwork in Morocco. She is also researching North African Muslim women athletes in the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. Her research asks how female athletes negotiate space for themselves within networks of power in local, national, and global contexts. So again, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Gwyneth Talley.
I always love the silent clap on Zooms, you guys. Thank you so much. Sorry, Maria, that was such a mouthful of a bio. Welcome, everyone. Thanks to the Nebraska Alumni Network for having me. It's such an honor to come back to UNL, even virtually, to talk about my global perspectives, how I got here. And I would say UNL was a massive springboard for it. So at any time I lecture throughout the week, so I'm like, if I start to get lecturing, stop me with questions, ask, jump in. I'm preferring to keep this as a conversation to answer questions for you all. But I'll give you a short, less technical bio and kind of a little bit about my career trajectory at UNL to kind of set the stage for how I got this global perspective. Also brace yourselves, there's going to be some really poor quality digital pictures, especially early 2008. If we remember, those were not the greatest times for digital pictures, but they get better throughout, so just bear with me. So again, thanks so much to UNL. Thanks to Maria for setting this up. And as I look at the person on the far right in this picture, man, like, she thought she was a global studies major. She was a global studies major, but damn, I don't think she realized what was ahead of her. Uh, so on the left is a picture of me on my first horse. I grew up in rural Nebraska outside Denton, pretty close to Lincoln, went to Crete High, but I graduated from the UNL Independent Study High School, which is now the University Nebraska High School. Uh, I was pretty lucky and very privileged that I was crossing borders very early. My mother's a Canadian citizen, and she immigrated to the United States. So as early as 6 years old, I started understanding what like a citizenship class was and what does that mean and how do we learn what does it mean to be part of a country. My dad's an American citizen, but he grew up all over the place, very specifically gaining his high school degree in Germany as a military brat. So already I came from people who'd traveled, and then both sets of grandparents were very avid travelers as well. So I chose UNL as kind of this new experience after high school of, okay, what can the world offer me? And I think, we build up in our heads what the choice was when we choose our universities. And maybe, maybe I was quite blasé, maybe a little naive when I decided to choose UNL, but I was looking very specifically at the colleges of what languages they offered. And so I initially joined UNL looking at potentially taking a lot of language classes. And ended up with 5 majors. So if you can't tell, I was really into trying a little bit of everything. And I kept adding new languages. So I carried on with some German that I learned in high school. It was the first year they offered beginning Arabic with a Fulbright scholar who was from Tunisia. And I started taking French. So there's a bunch of different kind of languages whirling around in my head, and in my spare time, I would go take a basic equitation class or a history of England, Stonehenge to the Glorious Revolution with Carol Levin. And so I think with interests popping up and new classes being offered, I was quite destined to have my 5 majors. So I ended up with global studies, history, English, medieval and Renaissance studies, and then finally I tacked on anthropology at the end. I think I found my forte at the end, found what I was always looking for. UNL offered so many opportunities. Far left, I was part of the UNL equestrian team, which was a college club sport. I was able to study abroad for the first time 2010 in Morocco. I went to the German program in 2012 and then returned to Morocco. I got roped into being the vice president of the Pakistan Student Association. I was roped into the Saudi Student Fashion Show, played in many different medieval and Renaissance studies get-togethers. The far right is when we got one of the first, I think that was one of the Trevelyan folios, and it was really, really big in like 2009, you guys. It was one great new addition to the library at the time. I was part of the founding members of the Globetrotters Club, go figure. And then I was also president of Anthro Group, as well as a College of Arts and Sciences ambassador and student liaison, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So you guys might tell I'm very much a wallflower, but I grew up very extroverted, and to this day, that's pretty much been how I operate. Towards the end, I was getting deeper into my anthropology degree, and our department at the time was really closely working with a bunch of Omaha tribal leaders. And so they came and gave us a lesson on the Native American hand game. And it's kind of a guessing game. And I really love this because it was one of my last semesters at UNL where we really interacted with the community, had a great time playing games, learning some of the ceremonies, learning and taking kind of a deeper look at UNL's relationship as well as student relationships with some of our local tribal groups. Now, many of you guys must ask, like, how did she get to Morocco? Why Morocco? In 2010, I originally was thinking, yes, I'm going to go to Egypt. I've wanted to go to Egypt since the 4th grade. We all take that moment where it's ancient Egypt and we're all obsessed with mummies, and that's all we kind of obsess over as, 4th graders. So I was convinced I was going to Egypt, and I think this was probably about 2 or 3 weeks before the deadline. Come to find out, the program, hilariously enough, at the American University in Cairo, was going to be very, very expensive. So how on earth was I also going to study archaeology, which I was an archaeologist focus at the time within anthropology. Archaeology is a subfield. So I was like, I need to study archaeology. I need to study Arabic, and it'd be great to tack on culture. How am I going to do that? So there's a program in Morocco. Morocco's the same thing, right? No. So come to find out, the Morocco program was about half the price of the trip to Egypt, double the length, double the courses, and pretty much doubling the kind of different path that I would take before I eventually would end up in Egypt. So 2010 comes around, I decide Morocco is it for me. And I stayed with a bunch of groups of other American students, lived with a host family, studied Arabic, and stayed with a horse training host family, which was amazing. And the food you eat and the people you meet really stick with you. And I remember when I left, I said, okay, I'm coming back. So 2012, I was getting further into the German program as well and said, okay, I'll do the Deutsch and Deutschland program because that's similar. So I was whisked away to Berlin for about 4 to 5 months, froze my bum off in the cold, dead winter of Berlin. The January through March is not a pleasant time. But again, living with the host family with a completely new experience before returning to Morocco for another language course, and then coming back to Germany to do an archaeological internship where I decided archaeology might not be for me. Finally, it was about time to graduate. I had to figure out what I was going to do. What do you do with 5 majors, 3 minors? I decided graduate school was probably the best way to continue, keep traveling. I was looking at conducting research. I was looking forward to applying for a Fulbright. And okay, how do I keep studying language, keep traveling, keep delving deeper into the things I'm interested in? And that turned out to be graduate school. So I applied all over, but UCLA accepted me for a master's PhD program in anthropology. And I like to say it's the most fun I never want to have again. But during that time, I applied for grants, as one does as a researcher. And I applied for the National Geographic Society Early Career Scholars, or Early Career Grant is what it's called. Back then, if you were under 25, it was called the Young Explorer Grant. So I was granted $5,000 to pay for equipment, which would eventually start and allow me to start filming what would eventually become a documentary that came out recently. So that's how you get to be a National Geographic Explorer. I'll tell you the expert in a little bit. I also applied for a Fulbright, which got me to Morocco for an extended period of time to finish up my, let's see, at that point, it would have been my dissertation research. So at that point, I said, okay, we're good. We're making connections. Here we go. And so go back to these pictures. Far left, I spent the first few months doing much more deep Arabic study, as you can see, with a donkey. No, but I worked at an equine charity hospital in Fez, Morocco. So in the mornings, I would go and work and volunteer with local veterinary technicians who were brought in. And you also had veterinary students from all over the world who would come and intern, but they can't speak Arabic. So I said, here, I will offer translation services to the best of my ability to kind of start triage. What's wrong with your donkey? Does your donkey have a cough? Naturally, this would come into conversation so many times later throughout Morocco. So for the first few months, I spent a lot of time honing my interest as a horsewoman, but also being able to use my Arabic skills for good, and also enjoying getting to know local veterinarians and making friends all over the world. As soon as January came around in 2016, it was time to start field work. So far right, you see me there. It's I'm about, let's say about 200 miles south of where I was in the left picture. And this is at what we call a Taburida festival. And that Taburida, it means to release the powder. And it's men, typically, not women, that line up their horses and do a traditional equestrian cavalry charge. This is done throughout Morocco in conjunction with Saints' Day festivals, local elections, births, weddings, and previously circumcisions as well. But I became really interested beforehand about the women who do this because they're just a small percentage among a sea of men. So in a group of like, let's say 10 to 15,000 riders throughout Morocco, I would say only less at this time, less than 100 women were riding into Bourida. So I wanted to know what made them special. And this is where I started my journey for my dissertation as well as the documentary that I made. So I made friends with Amari, the lady up to kind of to the right of me in the picture. And she welcomed me into her home and to her family and pretty much followed her and was a nuisance ever since. Eventually, we started the filming process, the research process eventually kind of became one and the same to find out what do these women have to do to gain acceptance on this field, especially in such a male-dominated arena, so to speak. So my documentary, and I'll link you guys all to it so you can go watch it, really looks at Amal's life as a mother, a Taburida team leader, and as a policewoman. So she was balancing career, family, and one of her favorite hobbies. But kind of the thing that kept centering her were horses. So I could really identify with her. And to this day, she and I are very good friends. My research wasn't all just video and picture taking. I often would spend time up top a horse with friends, getting to know people. Several of my other research participants were big into understanding that you need to get off the ground. You need to be at the height where we are. You need to feel what we feel. You need to dress the part. And so over several years, I've learned to ride these particular horses, which are all stallions, I might add. In the States, we're very fond of gelding horses. They do not do that. And so all of the horses are male, holding the gunpowder rifles, shooting the gunpowder rifles, and running breakneck down a field with your horse. To this day, I have yet to actually do it all together. I don't think my insurance is good enough yet for that. So I was partnered with Gabriela Garcia Pardo, who is the director of the film. I am the producer. And we spent, I would say there was over probably 5 or 6 trips to Morocco to get all of the footage we needed. And this was over the course of about 8 or 9 years. Most of the time when people talk about making films, they think about having a good budget, spending the time, having a crew and all of this. But this was very much fly by the seat of our pants, money when we have it, equipment when we can get it, and figure out the rest as we go along. So I would say for a documentary, in some aspects, it took longer than what most people would think. But there were also other roadblocks. So I would say summer 2018, I call Amal. I said, Amal, guess what? We're coming to Morocco to film you, and we'll finish up the documentary. And she goes, well, Gwyneth, I'm not riding. I said, why? She goes, well, I'm pregnant. Oh, so certain roadblocks, but that also made for a more interesting film. We got to follow her through a pregnancy, meet her newborn son, and follow her as she got on the horse again after, being off a horse for 3 years, getting back into the field, but now with more at stake. So this is kind of the relationship building, the time spent. It's worth every moment, but there were a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and anxiety thrown into it. But it was worth the trip 100% because the Bardia, it's now distributed on YouTube thanks to National Geographic. It won the Montreal Independent Film Festival short, and it won the Cannes Short Film Festival Best Documentary Short. So after all this, I feel really good that that's been something to be proud of, to really kind of spend that much time and to have something to produce, not just for myself, but for Amal and her family to have as a life kind of curated life story for her. Shortly after I graduated, I returned to University of Nebraska right as COVID hit. And it was really fun to come back to my old department, almost a little bit surreal, but I taught anthropology at the School of Integrated Studies or Integrative Global Studies for 2 years before finally being offered the job to be an assistant professor at the American University in Cairo. Now, big cultural changes, big differences. I remember 2 days before I left, and my mom will probably laugh at this too, is, as you guys can tell, I'm so shy. My biggest worry was I don't have friends there. But friends I did make and friends I do have, it's been an amazing ride to come to Egypt, especially after uh initially supposed to be coming to Egypt for the study abroad back in 2010 to finally make it 12 years later. But now in a different position. And so I get to have my dream job teaching students, and Egyptian students at that, about cultural anthropology and what does that mean to uh, our our favorite phrase is to make the strange familiar and the familiar strange, where we take them out of their kind of norm and we have them re-examine their everyday and think about what makes culture special. What is something you take for granted that other people don't, or other people might find interesting or weird or strange? And so it's been an absolute wild ride. And uh, even to this day, like I've taken students to where the revolution happened. So many of you might remember the Arab Spring down in Tahrir Square in Egypt. That was like the biggest thing where tons of people had flooded, pretty much stopping traffic in Egypt. And I've taken students down there and shown them their heritage and talked about what it means to be part of that culture. And many of them had never been there. And it's kind of like living in Lincoln and never having been to Memorial Stadium. So if you can imagine something that's so pinnacle to a city like Memorial Stadium, that's me taking my Egyptian students to Tahrir Square. And so I've made my home here for 3 years. I still occasionally teach a class for UNL as an adjunct. I'm still working on research projects back in Nebraska. But to this day, this is kind of my life, going back and forth between Morocco, Egypt, and Nebraska. So much so that after I'd finished my grant with National Geographic, I went back to headquarters. You can kind of go to headquarters if you're ever in DC. They have a great museum. And I was doing some research and asking kind of more follow-up questions. I also review grants for them. And I said, how do you get the job being the expert on the tours? And they're like, oh, we'll have you talk to someone. And so for the Morocco tours, the National Geographic land and kind of legendary city tours, I serve as kind of the National Geographic expert and representative. So that's how you get the expert title. And you go and you offer kind of some formal lectures, but cultural remarks. I pretty much think of myself as a walking Wikipedia for Morocco, over the course of 2 weeks for our guests. So one, it's definitely an honor to work with National Geographic, but one, I also like to remain humble about where I come from. If anyone meets me, I think within probably the first 10 minutes, they know I'm from Nebraska. And so just like a good Cornhusker, there is no home like Nebraska. So that's it for my like prepared remarks. But I'm happy to answer questions. I can also throw some trivia at all of you if you guys are interested in Morocco and Egypt trivia. That's always a fun one. But I'm happy to have a conversation, ask me questions. Feel free. I am an open book.
I'll start as people are thinking of questions, and feel free again to put those in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, take yourself off mute, that's fine. So I'm really interested, Gwyneth, in your thoughts and kind of recommendations, because this is a series on global perspectives, and in our first session with Akriti and Brianne, we had a chance to talk about how to approach situations in cultures that you're not familiar with. And, just your life story, you have been in a vast array of different cultural settings. And so how do you approach that, or how would you provide recommendations for individuals to feel more comfortable doing so?
Sure. Oh, Maria, I just went over this with my class this week. So, one of the things as anthropologists we really try to stress, especially to our students, is cultural relativism, which is trying to look at a culture within its own context and not trying to hold it to our standard. If we are holding another culture to our standard, we call it ethnocentrism, where we're putting our culture as like the superior standard to which to measure everything. Well, that gets awfully boring. I'm when I think of like approaching or integrating into a culture or looking at a cultural practice. Now, cultural relativism does top out somewhere. There are flaws with it, but trying to understand why we might look at how one culture operates and trying to understand why it's like that. How did it get there? And the biggest thing to kind of remember, and you don't always have to agree with it, you can just understand. And I think sometimes that's the better part, is like, I think there's a big kind of push for everyone to agree. But there's also beauty in difference and disagreeing, and you learn more that way by not being the same. And so having that time to look, reflect, maybe even reflect on our own cultures. Why do we do something like in a different way? And I always think this is kind of a good approach to put it in perspective. Now, everyone, when you travel, we all get culture shock. We all get tired. We all want something that's like a food from home. We all get maybe overwhelmed at times, and that's okay. And we're all human anyway. So mostly I always preach the cultural relativism is check it within its own context.
Liz asked in the chat, how often do you get to come back to Nebraska? And have your parents gone to visit you in Egypt?
Oh man. Okay. So I come back to Nebraska pretty much every winter break and every summer break. I'm still doing I've got a research project running in Nebraska, actually, if anyone's familiar with community crops in Lincoln. I've got a research project running with the Yazidi community in Nebraska. So I've been coming back more frequently, not just to see the parents are very dear, but also to do research. So yeah, I do come back. Sorry, what was the other question? How
Have
often
your
I get,
parents?
have they gone to see me in Egypt? No, unfortunately, that they've not come to see me in Egypt, but both parents have come to Morocco, and mom's brought a couple friends, and I've squired them about. And then for my dad's 75th birthday, we toured around Morocco together. So that was really special.
I think this great question comes from your mom, Betty. What do the Egyptian students think of a white woman from Nebraska teaching them about culture? And then in addition to that, Liz also kind of tacked on just in general, what do Egyptians think about Americans?
Oh, this is a good one. So one, the American University in Cairo has a pretty international reputation. It is an elite school. They like to build themselves as the Harvard of the Middle East. It is a private research university, so it's a very expensive, very exclusive school. Many of them, I love this. I think initially many of the students think you're a pushover because you're an American and you don't understand the culture. And I would say a lot of the new international faculty that come, that can be the case. But when you're a cultural anthropologist, it's like you've got a secret weapon. And I think as soon as the students realize I'm really into the culture, I'm into learning about Egypt, and I'm into the exchange, the students really buy into a class with me, and they really appreciate that. I want to understand. I want to ask questions. One of my favorite things to do is when I'm learning their names, and we just started the semester earlier this month, is if I don't understand how they're saying their name to me, I write it in Arabic on the board. And that's kind of it's one of those like little magic tricks you pull out to impress the students. But I think they really appreciate my insight and how I can kind of say, okay, this is your perspective, because think about time, space, place, context. Think about your social class. Let's talk about the other social classes in Egypt. And I think it gets them to think deeper, because oftentimes when you're a tourist, you might see more of a country than people who live there. Kate, this is very true. I recently was walking through downtown Cairo, very old Islamic Cairo, and I'm pointing out Al-Azhar Mosque. Al-Azhar University and Mosque is like the religious authority in Egypt. Everyone knows it, but might not everyone have seen it. And so I'm pointing at it going, oh yeah, guys, this is Al-Azhar. And they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, trust me, I know what I'm talking about. They're all Googling it. Oh, it is Al-Azhar. Okay. Like, so there's a bit of disbelief. There's a bit of wonder why this random foreigner would know more. Overall, I would say Egyptians are really open to American culture. They love the media, they love the music, they love the Netflix coming out of America. I would say right now, due to the current conflict, definitely some more, I would say, disagreement with our government policies rather than the people themselves. I think they're seeing kind of the reaction all over the world, and I think they understand that this is a product of governments, not so much of the people. So I would say overall, America, and I think the next question that kind of follows that everyone asks me is, do you feel safe in Egypt? Do you feel safe in Morocco? Absolutely, 100%. It's like any big city, it's like, I mean, I wouldn't even compare it to Chicago even probably, but just the handgun issue is not an issue there. It's not an issue in Egypt. And I know that's a bit controversial to say, but why not? Ruth, I saw your question about the mosque in the last slide. So the mosque in this slide, this is the Muhammad Ali Mosque in Cairo. This is Old Cairo. And it's also known as the Alabaster Mosque. And it's from the Ottoman era. So many of you, if you've ever been to Turkey, the Hagia Sophia is very similar in architecture. Take a quick segue on that one. Shelley, I see your question. Serious question, fun question. So the safety question. Physically safe, I think the only time I really feel not physically safe is trying to walk in traffic there. And or if I mean, to me, it doesn't faze me anymore to be in a car in Cairo, but they are insane drivers and they admit it. Most interesting thing I've eaten during my travels, sheep's brain. Sheep's brain is what I've eaten. It's really good, but I couldn't get over the texture.
Yeah.
Where was that? Where did you have the
That
sheep?
was in Morocco. That one's considered, so the brain, the tongue is also considered a delicacy. The cheeks of goat and sheep's cheeks are considered very savory. I'll tell you one of my favorite weird things to eat in Morocco, especially during the Eid al-Kabir, the big feast, where it's a big sacrificial. Everyone gets a sheep or a cow or a goat and slaughters it. I love sheep testicles grilled, and I'm instantly regretting that because this is a recording of me saying I love sheep's testicles. Oh, I've also eaten camel. Thank you, Mom. Yeah, I mean, but camel feels more normal, I think, weirdly enough. That's how you get there. Let's see. Other questions?
There is a question for your mom to answer if she's willing.
Oh, she's definitely willing, I promise.
Betty, what are your thoughts on your daughter going off on such large adventures?
Oh, well, originally, the first time she came to us, as she freely admitted early on, it was about 3 weeks before she was going to depart. So we were a little like, what? What just happened here? And but that she said, yeah, Egypt turned out to be too expensive. Oh, good. Because Egypt, what I tell people to this day is, if you look at Los Angeles and New York, that's Morocco and Egypt. It's still another 6 to 7 hours travel by plane across the continent. So, but since my husband Hirsch and I have both been to Morocco, we love Morocco. We'd go back in a heartbeat. The people are very friendly. I happen to speak French, which helped. So Gwyneth didn't have to babysit me 24/7 because a lot of Moroccans speak French. Really friendly people. I try to tell people, because the stereotypes of Muslims, that these are just people who love their children, love their families. They just want to get along in life too. It's not, it's people anywhere in the world. What do they want? They want the best for their family and friends. So, but I think Gwyneth becoming an anthropologist was pretty much perfect, because we're shy. We don't have a problem talking to anybody. In fact, Gwyneth, I met a new friend at a store yesterday. And we just, we can pretty well, we have a family saying we can have a good conversation with the wallpaper. So I do tell them your story about your bracelets, though, Gwyneth, from Morocco.
Oh, jeez. I'll get there. I'll get there. Yeah, so I think, you know how some kids grow up knowing exactly what they want to be, and that's like the dream driver. I think for me, it was like I was always destined to be an anthropologist, and everything that I did led to it. I just didn't know it at the time. Okay, so I saw, Leslie, you asked a question about the horse trappings. Okay, so if I'll go back to one of the pictures, I think this one, yeah? Yeah. Let me just play from current slide so you guys can see it. So, Leslie, I'm guessing you might be a horse person. So these are all hand embroidered bridles, blinders, handmade bits. And so it's usually gold thread embroidery. It's all handmade in Morocco. It's all part of the handicraft. So Tabourida as itself is a folkloric display. And so all aspects of it are completely made in Morocco. This is something they're also very proud of. They're like, this is not from China. Because I think, you know, that globalization encroaching on Morocco, it kind of, they feel threatened by it. And so everything from the boots that we see, Ibtisam here wearing these kind of orangey boots, the stirrups, even to the clothes, all of that is hand woven in Morocco, and including the gunpowder rifles and the swords, they're all handcrafted in Morocco. Which is a big source of pride. And fun fact also is Tabourida was named UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage in 2021. And so this is something that's, Morocco is really kind of trying to lift up to say like, look, we've got something here that really represents us. But it's also like asking someone if, you know, from anywhere in the States, like, have you gone to a rodeo? Well, if you're not part of that area, you might not have. So one, Tabourida is also an interesting kind of tidbit of culture, and that's kind of, as anthropologists nowadays, we really focus in on something very specific and niche like that. So a lot of people are probably like, why are we doing that? Oh, love it, Leslie. I just saw it. Art historian. Okay. Yeah, so many times you get the team, they'll all wear the same colors, but except for the leader will wear something different. But the trappings on the horses kind of depends on the team. If the team can afford to all buy the same saddles and the same bridles and all of that, they all go in with the same colors. Or you kind of put together a hodgepodge of your closest friends, and if they have a horse and if they have the saddle, boom, you go and you play. It's just kind of, it kind of depends on how nice the festival is you're going to and how much money you have at the time. Horses aren't cheap. Horses aren't cheap, saddles aren't cheap. Grace, I see your comments. Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like I did try to walk through almost every door, and if anything slammed in my face, pretty much I would try to crawl out the window if you ask my parents. What advice do I have for students that are contemplating their next steps, abroad or not? One, yeah, I'm very much a fan of the shotgun approach in terms of send out as many feelers as you can. Try to ask as many questions, dig a little bit deeper, apply for things you don't think you could get. Kind of the big thing that I think we all fear is no, we have the anxiety of being rejected. But I think one, hearing no a lot over time, like as much as I can create this really smooth story. Oh, sorry. As much as I can kind of create this kind of smooth, direct story, there were a lot of doors that were slammed in my face, and that's okay. And I think all of those, having rejections, having no's, really strengthen you to keep doing. Either out of spite or determination, you know, good tenacity is a skill to have. And so either way, I would say students should always go, you know, it's very cliche, right? Go for the moon, you land among the stars. But if you can really like put yourself out there for all these different things that you want, something will fall into place. Oh boy, I think we've been trolled. All right. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing actually. Okay. So let's see what else. What advice? Brianne, can you share? Yeah. Brian, my work with community crops, I'm looking at local Yazidi farmers who have moved to Nebraska to one, get new jobs, settle in Nebraska, but also who are interested in urban farming and gardening. And what does that mean to have new crops, new situations where they can grow and be a part of a community and so on.